Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video we have our first update to the Season 1 Ret DPS guide for the War Within. And we had to do this because they did some big changes to hero talents, namely buffing the crap out of Templar. So this is going to be the update for this. We are going to have to do another update at the end of the month, October 22nd, that week. They are redoing the Paladin talents, so we'll have to talk about that as well. So it's going to be a fluid situation here, but for the next couple weeks at least, this is the update that we need to do. Luckily, it is only talent based. Pretty much everything else stays the same. The kind of the enchants you're going to use, all that kind of stuff, right? It's going to stay the same. If you want the full guide, you go back to the full guide and just know that now Templar, everything I'm about to say in this video takes precedent over the other video. So there's gonna be a bit of a nuanced video, which I know is not everybody's favorite. I see all the time there's a lot of people that just want, hey, what do I play, when do I play it, how do I play it? They don't want to be like, well, sometimes you do this. But we are going to be talking about that in this video, unfortunately, for those people. And for people who like nuance, then you'll enjoy this. So basically, we're going to be playing Templar in most content, or can play Templar in most content now as of the last update. This is going to basically, as far as talents for Templar go, it's going to be basically the same, except for one thing's different. And I will, for all the builds I talk about, I'll post a Templar Mythic Plus build, and I'll post a Templar single target build in the description below. So it's going to be this talent node here, which there's Zealous Vindication, and there was For Whom the Bell Tolls, especially in single target. For Whom the Bell Tolls was the play. However, because they buffed the crap out of Empyrean Hammer, Zealous Vindication is actually going to be the play here for single target and AoE. And so that's going to be pretty much the only difference. And like I said, I'll post those below as far as that goes. So what I'm in here is in my Mythic Plus Templar build. You're going to notice this is extremely similar to the Herald Mythic Plus build as well. Very, very similar to that. Obviously, when it comes to utility, there's other stuff you can take. You don't have to have everything taken that I can take, that I'm currently taking. Throughput stuff's mostly at the bottom, and all these talents on the Paladin side are going to change. The rat side is the more important side when it comes to damage. There's one notable difference here, and it's a Templar only thing, in my opinion, and that's taking Execution Sentence over Final Reckoning in Mythic Plus. And this is just because they buffed it, and I thought, man, this sounds like a pretty good buff. And I don't know if it's not working correctly or not, or if it just was not even close to being a good enough buff. But I could barely even tell that they buffed Final Reckoning for Hammer of Light. And so I would still recommend using Execution Sentence, just the small one, not the Extendo down here with the will down here. Just the regular Execution Sentence for Mythic Plus, just because, again, the Final Reckoning doesn't do enough. They would have to buff that Final Reckoning even more for it to be usable with Templar. So that was not a big enough buff, essentially. Other than that, you're playing it the exact same way. Like I said, the talents are basically the same, and you just play this the exact same way that you would the Herald of the Sun. Just like I talked to in the Mythic Plus, I did a Mythic Plus video as well. You play the same way, except for now you're doing Hammer of Light. So if you don't know, basically you're going to have, let's say you can have 2 Holy Power already with a Judgment or something, right? Or technically you could start with your Divine Toll. Let's say you start with Judgment, Execution Sentence, Wake of Ashes with Radiant Glory talented. Then that's going to activate your Hammer of Light. You should have 5 Holy Power. Go ahead and spend your Hammer of Light, and now do your normal priority, like Judgment first, and then Blade, Hammer of Wrath being the last choice there, especially in AoE situations. And then just keep Divine Storming still. You're just going to Divine Storm into your Execution Sentence and AoE for AoE situations. And then in single target, you just do the normal single target. I went over that in the original guide for Templar single target. And that is the exact same thing I said, except for you press Final Verdict, except for Divine Storm. It's pretty cut and dry. I have examples of me actually showing you the rotation in those videos. Again, this is just an update video for people to stay on track, keep up with what's going on in the game. So yeah, that's basically how that's going to work. Again, this is the Mythic Plus build. When we go to we'll go to a single target build here. This is pure single target. And then we're going to talk about when to use these, okay? So single target, this is single target build. I'll link this as well. This is the exact same build as Herald. They made Empyrean Hammers work as damage over time, which very much increased the value of Penitence. And also, you know, Burned Ash becomes a little bit better of a talent as well. Originally, in the original guide video for Templar single target, we were actually taking Judgment of Justice, and this is no longer the case because we basically moved that down to Penitence. And then other than that, it's pretty much the same. And so this is kind of the single target build that you're going to see playing for single target or even single target with like very light cleave or very low cleave. Basically, if you want to press Divine Storm, you know, like a handful of times, like on a raid fight, you can always move like Empyrean Legacy to Tempest of the Lightbringer up here. That would be a way just to make it very light cleave. And then if you're planning on cleaving a little bit more, you move your Vanguard's Momentum down here to Blessed Champion to have your Judgment cleave as well. And so that's kind of how you change this build from a straight single target to like a cleave build. Pretty simple there as well. Again, that's Empyrean Legacy in the bottom left. You just change that to Tempest of the Lightbringer. And if you're fully cleaving a decent amount, you just move your Vanguard's Momentum to Blessed Champion. And that would have to be sustained cleave. You wouldn't want to do that just for like the Rasheron ads or something like that are going to die really, really quickly. Now let's talk about when we're going to use these. Now this is where the nuance come in. So that's the talents. We'll put those in the description below, like I said. Now let's get to the nuance part. When it comes to the raid, so if you're a raider, you're mostly going to be using this Templar single target. If you check Warcraft logs, you're going to see already that most of the bosses, the top thing is going to be Templar already after just 2 days. I expect that to improve even more. Now, it's not like light years ahead of Herald by any means. So there's going to be Herald high rolls still, you know, towards the top on some of them. But I do expect over time for Templar to kind of take over on most of those fights. Now, there are some fights that have barely any kills on them with Ret Paladins that are actually logged on Warcraft logs, like Silken Court, and of course, then on the Queen as well, Queen Ansarak. So those you can't really tell yet. Brood Twister is going to be an interesting one because I can see both of these being good for Brood Twister, specifically with all the AoEing. So what I would say is right now it's probably pretty even on Brood Twister. And then, so you'd want to be playing like an AoE Templar build for Brood Twister, similar to the Mythic Plus build. And you would be, you know, just obviously your Hammer of Light's doing most of the damage at that point, and your Empyrean Hammers, but you're still Divine Storming and stuff as well there. And basically, well, for that fight, Herald's also still really good because Herald was way ahead in AoE, and we'll talk about that when we talk about Mythic Plus. And so this brought Templar back in the realm of it, but it was way ahead on AoE. So it's going to be one of those fights where I could see Herald still doing really well, but maybe especially over time as we get more DPS, we're going to get this buff to the raid soon. If you're not even aware of that, if you were a raider, you should have started getting the currency for that buff this week. And so that's going to increase our damage by like 3% every week or every 2 weeks or something like that. And those ads are going to start dying faster and faster and faster. And so it's not going to be sustained AoE anymore. And so Herald's going to lose value. So even a fight like Brood Twister, I do expect, especially over time, Templar to be the play there. And basically Templar to be basically what we use for the rest of this season, rest of this patch, whatever, of the first season of the War Within. I expect to use Templar in raid for that, basically, for every fight. Again, right now, if you're going into raid on this Friday or Saturday as I'm making this video, you know, and you're on Brood Twister, maybe you still play Herald there. You can try out both, see how they feel for you, like which one's doing more damage, which one's doing damage on the things I want it to do. You know, this is where the nuance kicks in. But Herald might still be fine on that for now, but I could see with that damage buff and our gear increasing, those ads are going to die. They can already, if you grip those ads perfectly and everyone pops on them, they already die pretty instantly. So imagine that even faster is what I would say there. So raid, pretty much versions of Templar on every single fight, whether it's AoE Templar or single target Templar or light cleave Templar. When it comes to Mythic Plus, this is where it's even a little bit more nuanced. There's not just one boss or one dungeon. I played a lot of... how many keys have I already done this week? I think I've already done 10 or 12 keys this week, mostly because I wanted to mess around with this stuff, right? So I did some with Templar, I did some with Herald, I did some with Templar trying out Final Reckoning, and some with Templar. We might as well switch this back to Mythic Plus build since we're talking about that. Mythic Plus Templar. Just trying everything out, right? And what I'll say is this. Again, it's like sustained big AoE. Herald is still really good. And I don't know that Templar can top that for, again, sustained AoE. And it really doesn't top that, at least in current gear. So you kind of have to make a choice here. And I've been kind of switching it back and forth depending on what I'm doing. So I had a Templar run, a Mythic Plus run where I was playing Templar, right? And, you know, I still did really well, but I could have definitely did more. Like, I think I probably could have did 200,000 to 300,000 more because it was Grim Batol, and I've done 1 million Grim Batols because I'm still trying to get my trinket. And so I was doing Grim Batol, and we pulled it very aggressively. And I know when we pull aggressively in there that I can easily do like 1.7 to 1.9 overall, million overall damage in there if it's pulled like that, because I've just done it enough times to know that that's the number I should end up on. And instead I did about 1.5, which is still very respectable. But I think I'm 99% sure that I could have done more with Herald on that run. And so then I switched to Herald, and I did another Grim Batol run. And this one was just very slow paced. Like, we just barely timed it, pulled one group at a time. And in that case, now I'm playing Herald, and I'm like, well, I could have done more with Templar, because if you've probably done Grim Batol by now in the expansion, you know, there's some pulls that if you don't pull it together, it's only 3 mobs. And so Templar is very superior on 3 mobs. So yeah, I would have done more damage in that key if I was playing Templar. And so I've kind of gone back and forth. I think I'm probably just going to settle with playing Templar unless I'm in like a guild group that I know we're going to pull aggressively, and I know we're probably going to execute pretty well, like execute the plan and stuff very well. So unless if I'm going to be pulling, if I'm confident I'm going to be pulling big, then I'll probably play Herald. But if I'm not confident I'm going to be pulling big, I'll probably play Templar. And that's how I'm going to differentiate it. Because if you just look at raw big AoE DPS, let's say you pull 12 mobs, okay? Herald is going to win every time. If you pull 12 elite mobs in a Mythic Plus, Herald is going to win every single time on that. If it's bigger than that, it's going to win by more. But that's just kind of how that works. Templar is going to, again, win on smaller pulls, and also win on boss damage, at least by a little bit. The Mythic Plus build doesn't lend itself to the boss damage as much, but it still will beat it out, you know, the Herald build by a little bit there on boss damage. And so, you know, it kind of evens out. Overall, they're very even in Mythic Plus. If you just look at a complete overall, if you simulate like Dungeon Slice on raid bots, for example, you'll probably notice that one of them wins by like 10 to 20k DPS over the other. And it could be a different one. Like Templar could win for me by 10k, and Herald could win for you by 10k. It's a very small margin. And Dungeon Slice isn't perfect. That's not what I personally use, but I know a lot of people do use it, and it has gotten a lot better, by the way. Dungeon Slice has gotten a lot better than what it was before. And so, yeah, Templar is definitely playable in every dungeon. It's playable, but it's specifically going to be better on dungeons where you are pulling one pack at a time. That's where it's going to shine. If you're just holding W, pulling one pack at a time, Templar is going to shine in those dungeons. If you're doing a big pull, this is the exact how we got here was in beta. Herald was better on AoE. Templar was better on single target. They then buffed our AoE up a little bit more, Divine Storm specifically, which synchronizes with Herald, and Herald got even better. They nerfed some of our single target stuff. Templar got a little bit worse. Not really, but kind of. And then they fixed a bug with Herald, and then Herald was just way better. And then they do these heavy buffs to Templar, and Templar just shoots back up close to it. So we've been on this ebb and flow of moving around our hero talents ever since beta, and it's kind of just continued until now. And Templar is just basically kind of in the same boat that it originally was in before any of the nerfs, before any of the buffs, where it's just a little bit worse on AoE than Herald is. But it's sustained AoE, and it's high number of targets, right? And so you just gotta factor that in for yourself. I can't tell you how your group's gonna pull, right? If you have a group then you know how they pull, right? If you have a team that you do stuff with, like, oh, we pull this one pack of 15 mobs and we pop Bloodlust. Yeah, that might be a good dungeon to use Herald in. But if you're not doing that, then it might be better to use Templar. So it's really dungeon to dungeon, group to group thing. Like I said, I've been playing with both, topping damage meters on both, right? The only time I haven't topped the damage meter today in a keystone is when I played Templar. It's specifically in that Grim the Toll that I talked about that we pulled very aggressively, that I think I could have did more as Herald, right? Maybe 200,000 more overall DPS as Herald in there. But just want to give you guys this update. I know it was a bit long-winded, but I just wanted to get all the information out there. Everything that from my experience, from my testing, all the way back from beta until now, and just kind of try to let you guys know, what to play, or at least give you the power to make that choice yourself, let's say, in this case. So it's pretty much up to you. Let me know how you guys are doing in the dungeons. Like I said, I'm doing fine with Templar. I'm doing fine with Herald, but that's how it is in dungeons. In raid, it's a little bit more straightforward. In raid, it's going to be Templar, and it's just going to be more Templar as we get more of that buff to the raid or whatever. So that's it for this one, guys. Like I said, there'll be another guide update at the end of this month when they completely change this Paladin side. Where is it at? Paladin side right here. The Paladin side of the tree. There'll be another update so we can talk about that. So that's it for this one. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out so much. If you're already a subscriber, I encourage you to check out the Patreon. Other than that, everybody, have a good one.